Hi, I'm Johnny from UltimatePaperMache.com, and I've started making a murder hornet helmet mask for Halloween. Now, this was not my idea. In the last video, I asked you for some ideas for a Halloween mask because I was working on a tiger mask. I knew there was going to be time I could do something else in between all the different steps for making one of the patterns. Like, it's going to be a pattern like one of these back here that take me a long time to build. So I wanted something else to work on. And we got a ton of ideas. I think there were over 100, and so many of them are really good. I almost felt like I should just print them up and choose one at random. But in the end, I decided on the murder hornet. They don't belong here. They're supposed to be in Asia. It's really officially called an Asian giant hornet. They're huge, bright red and black, I think, in most of the photographs anyway. And they're really creepy, which is kind of appropriate, but the face is really pretty, and it actually looks like something that a movie character designer would come up with. So I decided, okay, we're going to go with this one. It was recommended by a YouTube viewer named Baba Daza. Thank you very much. I appreciate the idea. And obviously I'm not done yet, but I want to let you see how we've gotten this far, and then in the next video we'll go ahead and finish them up. This is what the real ones look like, but most of the photographs I see actually have them being a really bright orange rather than this yellow. And orange and black are perfect Halloween colors, so that's what we're going to use in this one. I'm only going to make the face. I'm not going to make the whole hornet because that truly would terrify all of my neighbors' kids. I mean, well, terrify me too. That's just too scary. If you want to do that, be sure to let us know how it turns out. I just happen to have this glass bowl that I got from Walmart years ago. And if I take my glasses off and I put it on, it just happens to fit. And it's got a perfect spot right here for those huge black eyes. And I don't want to get hot glue on my glass bowl, of course, so I'm just going to cover it up with aluminum foil, and then I'll create those great big eyes and the mouth parts, creepy, with the aluminum foil and some hot glue. Then I'll cover it with one layer of paper strips and paste. After that, I'll use some paper mache clay to make the final detailed shapes and to make it really, really stiff and hard. Then I turned on the hot glue gun, and when it was warming up, I drew the eyes and the other parts onto the foil. Fortunately, the face on a murder hornet has really simple shapes. They're weird, but they're really simple, so it wasn't too hard to get them pretty close to the shapes that they needed to be. Then I started adding foil, beginning at the top, because obviously the top of the bowl that's upside down is going to be flat, and I wanted that to be rounder, so I just stuck some crumpled foil and some hot glue up on top of there to just round it out, and then I started working on the rest of it. The first thing that I did was the part that looks like maybe it would be a nose if it was on like a mammal or something. Obviously he doesn't have a nose like we do, but that's what I'm going to call it anyway. Then I put the eyes on there, and the diamond shaped feature that goes between the eyes, it looks like it belongs on a military helmet. I'm getting everything as close as possible with the foil and the hot glue. I can make some changes with the paper mache clay after it's all done, but I want to get it as close as I can. And I'm burnishing it down really smooth, or as smooth as I can, with a flat piece of wood. It happens to be a paint stirring stick that I just happen to have on the shelf, and it works really good. Now the mouth parts are next. Totally creepy, but you got started on those. Now there are pointy tooth-like things that are on those mouth parts, and I'm going to add those later. I'm probably going to make them a lot sharper and make more of them than are really on the murder hornet, just to make them really scary. But I'll do that when I add the paper mache clay. I'm not going to do it right now. Now the sides had to be filled out just a little bit better to make everything look like, you know, it belonged and it had the right shapes. When I was all happy with it, I mixed up some cooked flour and water paste. Now, I'm going to be using one layer of paper mache on this first before the paper mache clay. I do not like using paper mache clay next to the skin. It dries really, really hard and it's almost impossible to get it smooth enough to be comfortable. So I do not recommend paper mache clay as the first layer when you're making a mask. But it works really well for the second layer or for details, just not the first one that's going to be actually next to your skin. I used some brown paper strips with my paste. Any soft paper is going to work, like you can use newspaper or anything else. I'm just using brown paper because I have a whole bunch of it. It comes in Amazon boxes and because it's easier to see on a video. If you don't want to use the paper mache clay at all, then you're going to need a whole lot more than just one layer, probably 3 to 8 to make it strong enough. It really depends on so many different factors. I can't tell you exactly how many layers you'll need, but do test it. Once it's dry, test it to make sure that it doesn't bend really easily before you take it off your form. And then I got out my antenna, my flexible straws. Don't know why I bought them, but I have them and it was perfect. Now I don't use wire in anything that's going to be worn. I know a lot of people, the first thing they would think when they see those antenna is, well, I'll just use some wire. I don't do that, and I highly recommend that you don't do that, because even though I know you're not as clumsy as I am, but somebody next to you might be, and if they fall against you and you like hit a wall or even fall down, that wire could poke through the paper mache and right into your skin. It could even go through your eye. I really don't suggest any kind of wire on any wearable paper mache, but these flexible straws, perfect. They even bend in exactly the right place. Now I'm not going to attach them right away, but I did want to get them out, making sure that they were going to work, and then I covered them with the brown paper and the paste. Let that dry when I was adding my paper mache clay over the head. Now he is going to need some teeth. I started the paper mache clay before I remembered that, so I put it down and I cut a strip of light cardboard, made a whole bunch of really teeny jagged points all along the side, and then I set those aside because, like I said, I'm not going to be adding those till the very end, but I wanted them ready. Then I went ahead and covered the rest with the paper mache clay. I'm putting it on as thin as I can. I did have to make a few changes because when I was putting the foil on, I didn't see that they've got a feature that goes over their eyes, almost like an eyelid. I'm sure it's not an eyelid, but you know, to my mammal brain, that's what it looks like. So I put that on with the paper mache clay. Then when the paper mache clay was on there, I put the teeth on. I pressed it right into the wet paper mache clay and then covered the edge with more paper mache clay. And I used the cap of a pen to create the 3 circles on the diamond-shaped area up at the top. They've got a really interesting, I mean, it really looks almost like a military helmet when you look really closely and blow up the photograph really big. And then when the paper mache clay was stiff enough so that I could handle it just a little bit, I added the antenna. And I made a few final changes, of course. The antenna, once it gets dry, those antennas should be on there really strong. So that's as far as I can go today because it has to dry. I can't put it in the oven to dry it because it's got hot glue inside. And we know what hot glue does when it melts. I definitely don't want it doing that in my oven. So it's going to have to sit probably for maybe 2 or 3 days even, because I want it to dry all the way through before I do anything else to it. Now in the next video I'm going to smooth it off. I wasn't going to do this, but now that I'm really kind of liking him, I've decided that I want to do it. I'm going to use that just real simple method of putting on a really paper thin layer of drywall joint compound. That's not going to take very much time, and it's going to be so thin it won't take very much time to dry. Then we get to paint those beautiful bright orange and black designs all over him. I really wish I had an airbrush and that I knew how to use it, but I don't either one, so I'm going to have to do it with a brush, and I think it's going to look absolutely fantastic when it's finished. but kind of terrifying. Now, one thing I need to do, obviously, before I go too much farther, is to put some eye holes in there if I decide that I'm actually going to want to see out. If it looks okay, once it's dry, I'm going to take all the stuff out from underneath it, put it on my head, and see if it will work just as a helmet. If not, if I have to pull it down so that it's actually over my nose, then I'll have to figure out where those eyes go. I wanted to leave that until last, or almost last, just because I didn't know exactly how it was going to look. Now, if you want to make sure that you see the next video and you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to do that. You know how to do it. And also make sure that you hit the bell so that you'll actually be notified when the next video comes out. Then go make something and come visit me, ultimatepapermache.com. I see you there.